So let's get started. You see my screen, and here's the logo for this DC Miro chapter. Well, it's a bit of irrelevant at this point because when I started doing this Miro events in DC, we already had a lockdown. So even the first event that I had for chapter was a virtual one. And over time, I learned that people don't care about the geography, they care about the content. And that's why I have Hillary here. So Hillary is here, is amazing professional, and she's doing conversational conversation design. She has very interesting idea how we can leverage the techniques for chats or different use cases, and she will go over this in very practical way, engaging you, going through these experiences of designing the conversation. So it's kind of very meta. And for this experience, we'll use the board. So that's why I encourage you just to click on that link so you can see the board on your computer as well. But Hillary will also be sharing the screen, so you will see this information even though you're not able to access the board. So agenda for today, just quick introduction, and then we'll have, majority of times doing the conversational game, the fun part. Housekeeping rules, depending on the audience size. So when I check, we get only 14 people. So you can feel free to unmute yourself and just having conversation with Hillary and community. And the most important part, if you're doing this first time, navigating the board. One way I train people to navigate the board is go through frames. So you have this outline, you just click on, if you want to understand how would you use the board and navigate that, you can just find this, how to use Miro, and play around with this zoom in, zoom out. Another thing is understanding that you have control. If you have arrow, you will move things around. But if you have a pan, you will just, move the board without changing the objects on the board. And you can use the select tool, like Hillary will ask for a voting, and you will use this just to put the dot on area. So that's it for you. It's very crucial to understand how this pan and select works. So this is the major one, the navigation and pointer and pan. But if you have questions, just send me a message on Zoom chat. I'll help you out. So the first thing for us, icebreaker, let's just test our skills. On the board, you will see icebreaker frame, and feel free to use select to get your dot and put it here. So I put myself for DC and I introduce myself. My name is Natalie, and I'm curious about conversation design. So it's your turn, just do that. And Hillary, please go ahead and take over.
Yeah, so I am also going to put my little dot over here. Here, and let me share my screen. Let's see. Okay, you can see my screen here, my Miro board.
Yep.
I'm very zoomed in here. So then you can see what I'm doing too. If you're not sure, if you haven't used Miro yet, you can leave a comment and just say like, hi, I'm Hillary. Why are you here? I'm here to host this event. And I work for a company called MAV. I also have a company called Conversation Designer Jobs. And then I see lots of people moving their little dots. This is so fun.
And I see people from here. Can you unmute yourself and talk about your place?
Yeah, Jessica, I see Jessica and Sophia. You're on here.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi. Iago, you're here. We heard you earlier. You're interested in conversation design and natural language processing. Oh, that's me. I'm over here now. I should be over here.
Yeah, my dot got moved all the way to the other side of the country somehow.
So you're from Canada, right? Because you put at the note Canada something.
We're from Western Canada, but they somehow got moved all the way to Eastern Canada, those dots.
Yeah, I know. So that's why it's a
Thanks,
bit
Jessica.
of a complicated exercise, guys. So that's why I refer back to how to use Miro, so you can undo the changes, because we're doing this at the same time, and people sometimes move around, even delete the objects, which is fine. Just know how to undo the last action.
This is a really great test of the platform, but also of some rusty geography skills.
I know, very engaging, but hopefully not so stressful.
Yes, absolutely. And if you just have joined, I put the link again in the Zoom chat so that you can come onto the board. And this will be a crash course in practicing using it before we get into the game, which I'm so excited about. And I see. So what we're going to do when we get into the game is taking these dots and voting what you want to learn. So that's going to be super fun and interesting way. So this is definitely something worth practicing right now because you'll be doing it a lot. And you'll also be using this little comment feature as well. Who's here? Chelsea. Colorado. Yes, Colorado is somewhere around there. You're interested in learning more about conversation design. Who's here? Oh, Thiago, you're up there now. Who's here? Gizem. Hi. You're currently completing your thesis project in human-centered interaction and working on your portfolio in Israel. So we have people from all over the world here, which is super exciting. I love watching all of your little cursors flying around. So we'll give you guys like 2 more minutes just to kind of practice, even if you want to kind of like zoom around the board, get used to going different places. And then I can also like bring all of you to me in case you get lost. We can all go down there. Guest inventor. Who is that? Guest muralist. Are these assigned randomly? Does anyone know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Iris. Hi. You're from Mexico. Your virtual assistant is almost 3 years old. Whoa. Who is this with this big penguin here?
That was me. I was going to try to put it like where Antarctica is, but then I was like, oh my gosh, is that at the top or the bottom of the map? I don't know.
I think it's not on this map. Yeah, you can also add stickers, well, like emoji stickers and all different sorts of things. It would also be helpful to know, too, if you guys could put in the Zoom chat, who has used Miro before and who has not used it before. I know I'm asking for multiple ways of communication, but this will be good practice. Let's see. I have, but not very good at it. Have used Miro before. I've used it before. I've used it before. Never used it before. Have used it. So we are pretty much a mix of people, which is good. I have used Miro before. I do not consider myself to be an advanced Miro user or really an advanced shortcuts user. So you'll see me kind of fumbling around a little bit in how I actually navigate around the board, because I like to click my mouse when I'm zooming in and zooming out versus using the shortcuts. But you can feel free to use those as well. And yeah, so I think we can get started on the game. So let me just scroll down here. Oh, I should definitely see, this is exactly what I mean. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so if you can all follow me down to this workshop down here, you will see something that looks a little bit crazy, but it is going to be super fun and it is not as overwhelming as it looks. So when Natalie and I first were talking about this event, I wanted to come up with a way that we could utilize Miro for what conversation designers use it for, and you could also learn about conversation design. And I thought, what better way to learn about bots than to actually experience what it is like to use one. And so similar to how you would interact with a bot, for this, you are going to be interacting with me as if I'm a bot, and you get to choose what you want to learn. So there's all of these things on here that we could learn, but you will get to decide what you want to learn and maybe what we don't have time to learn this time. And if we end up doing another one of these events in the future, maybe you could learn about some different things. But it will be a very interesting way to sort of get through the basics of conversation design, to talk about how you can actually design a chatbot, and to talk about what skills you need to have if you want to become a conversation designer. What are some best practices about conversation design? And so, you know, this is what we call a flow map. And so this is sort of a flow map game, I guess we could say. That's the purpose of this bot today, is to teach you about conversation design and to experience what it is like to design a bot in Miro. So before we begin, like I said, just like a bot, I'm going to be asking you questions that have a few different options, and you can select which one you want to learn about. So you're going to choose the path that you want to go down. The paths are a little bit color coded, but we can kind of jump around a little bit the same way that you could in a bot. And so in order to place your vote of what you want to learn about, we're going to take these little dots and we're going to place them on the answer to the question. So to practice right now, let's go to this bubble right here and try it out. So if you're ready to get started, put your little vote on yes right here. If you're not ready to get started, I hate to break it to you, but you're going to have to leave the game for today. So we can give you just a couple of minutes to practice.
Oh.
And we see so many people moving their little dots. I also see people moving the board, which I don't recommend is to move the little flow maps, but only to move these little circles over here. And what you can probably do too when we run out of little dots is you can take yours from up here and drag them down. And let me just look at the chat. Jessica said, which is a great tip, if you are overwhelmed by seeing everyone move around in here, you can hide them by clicking the black arrow icon beside your profile photo. So that, I think, is this right here. So now I can't see anyone, and now I can see everyone. So actually, if you guys could tell me if you prefer that I turn off the cursors, if it's overwhelming for you to look at this, let me know in the chat of Zoom. No? It's fun. I agree, Brian, that it's really fun seeing all of you guys go all around. Okay, so I think it's right now safe to say that you all want to get started. So let's dive into learning about chatbots. So again, with the voting, what do you want to learn about first? And so if I were the bot, these are the answers that I'm giving you. You could want to learn about the definitions of conversation design, why businesses should use bots, the basics of conversation design, how to design a chatbot, and what makes a good bot. And so this is just our starting point. We're going to be learning about lots of different things today. We have, I believe, about like 25 minutes that we're going to be learning about things. And if at any time you have any questions that are not a part of this flow map, you can talk to a human with this button down here, which allows you to go here and grab a sticky, leave your question, and we can get to those at the end. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to decide what you want to learn about first. Again, that is definitions, why businesses should use bots, the basics, how to design, and what makes a good bot. And I think one is emerging as the winner here, but we will see. I wish I could see who placed what vote, but that unfortunately is not something I can see yet, unless I watch all of your little cursors.
Maybe you can join next time when you wanted to have different topic.
Yeah,
have
exactly.
Your friends to vote for that specific topic.
Exactly. Sorry, you guys. Also, I have to move my screen a little bit to see my notes. But I believe I can't see what you can see. So just so I know, can everyone see the whole Miro board?
I see the whole workshop frame.
Yeah, okay. So that is my screen, and then I have this other one. Okay, so we are going to start out with learning the basics of conversation design. And so what this is going to include is why bots need conversation designers. And so a lot of, sorry, let me just. So why bots need conversation designers is for something just like this. So if you are ever interacting with a chatbot, you might know that sometimes they tend to know a lot of things. Sometimes they don't know a lot of things, but for the most part, you know, they're having dialogue back and forth with you. And we call that, even though I know we didn't pick definitions, we call that conversation design. So conversation design really is the way that people are interacting with humans and bots. And so a conversation designer is not only going to decide which paths the bot is going to have. So me as the person who designed this game, I picked all of these paths that the bot is going to have. And then I also decided what I was going to say in response to it. So that is why bots need conversation designers, really is to keep the user on track and to make sure that the user understands what they're going to do, how they're going to get there, and what they need to do along the way to reach whatever goal you have set. And so UX writers and designers, which I think are some people who are in this group, maybe some people who are not in this group, they really make great conversation designers because you already know how to use tools like this. You already know how to create a user first experience. You know how to advocate for the user and think about the user first. And you know how to, write simple language. You know how to prevent and fix errors. You know how to enhance the experience with a personality. You know how to obey a style guide. And so there really are a lot of characteristics of UX writers and designers that make them a great fit for conversation design. And so if you're interested in it at all, it's a great skill for you to learn. And there are many, many other backgrounds that are a good fit for conversation design. Personally, my background is in social media and copywriting. And so I understand a lot of how to, write short form copy. I know how to make something engaging and how to make sure that a user wants to complete an action. And I will also add that UX Magazine said in 2019 that conversation design is the fastest growing role in 2020. And that was for UX writers. They were saying this is a skill that UX writers should learn. And I will say now that we're into 2021, they were totally right about that. This industry has absolutely been exploding over the past 5 years, but really in the last year since COVID and a lot of people wanted to actually get chatbots to help them communicate better. There really has been an uptick in the amount of people who are becoming conversation designers and the demand for conversation designers. So next, I want to ask you, what skill do you want to learn about? What skills you need to become a conversation designer? Or would you like to learn about something else? And if you would like to learn about something else, put your little dot anywhere else on the entire board. So I could dive into more of why a business might want to have a bot. We could talk about the design process. We could talk about what makes a bot good or bad. We could talk about the different types of bots that you might design for, the differences between those types of bots. Anything that you see is fair game at this point. And I see, is this a question? Natalie says that conversation designers keep the user on track, and that's totally true. Because you could imagine if I didn't plan this workshop at all, you could learn about anything in the entire world. You wouldn't know what you wanted to learn about. And so having conversation design is just saying, hey, I want to learn about this. And the bot either does it or doesn't do it. So in this case, like I said, if you have other questions that I don't have on this board, they're not necessarily, off topic, but they won't be a part of this part of the experience. So I think that we are seeing, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes for how to design, 4 votes for what makes a good bot. Oh, actually, I see 3 more votes for what makes a good bot over here. So we have a tie right now. We have a tie. So if you didn't vote for either how to design a bot or what makes a good one, make sure to place your votes, because one can be the winner. And we can still talk about both. We likely will talk about both, but this is what do you want to learn first? And let me just go in the chat real quick. I see Chelsea has a question in the chat, and that is, does a conversation designer need to implement it, i.e. build it? And so before we get into what we're going to talk about next, so a conversation designer isn't necessarily responsible for developing the bot. It kind of depends on the makeup of your team. And so a lot of times companies might be looking for a conversation designer that knows both. However, in most cases, you will be working with a developer to build the chatbot and also to maintain the AI models. And so, for example, in this real conversation, you just asked about something that is related to why do bots need conversation designers, but it wasn't planned in. So you could consider that to be an intent, meaning I only explained a certain amount of things about why bots need conversation designers, but this is something that is relevant to that. So I answered the question, and that's something that a conversation designer might write the copy for, but they wouldn't necessarily be responsible for actually developing that. If you can do both, that's an amazing skill. It's not a requirement. And so that's kind of like what I would say for that. Okay, so I think that what makes a good bot is the winner. I think it is the winner by 1 vote. So we can, of course, talk about how to design a chatbot next. But for now, we will go into what makes a good bot, which is actually a very good setup for the design process. So it's actually very easy to make a good bot. All you have to do if you want to make a good bot is have it be easy to use, have it have value for the user. So it's not just pointless. They're coming into it knowing what they're going to do and they're getting that result at the end, and it works. It doesn't break. It's not saying I don't understand you. It's not saying I can't do that a bunch of times. I'm sure that you all have experienced those types of bots. And that's kind of like the bad of it. So if a bot is long, confusing, tries too hard, it doesn't have a purpose, it fails too much, which is kind of what I just led into, that is something that really makes it not a good experience. And so a good experience is just something that works. It's really as simple as that. It's something that is bringing value into the user's life, and it is something that they get something at the end. So you could think of it as any action. It could be something like they are resolving a customer service request. They are seeing if they qualify for something. They are getting a coupon. They are subscribing to get updates about a package that's going to get delivered. There's a lot of different purposes that revolve around specific actions, and making sure that the bot is able to complete that one action. It could be a few different actions. You know, if you have customer support, they could be able to resolve several different things within your actual bot. Or it could be something as simple as, do you qualify at the end? Yes or no. And so there's really a lot of different, experiences that you can create. But for the most part, I would say that the key is to make sure that it is easy, that it is engaging, not trying too hard, but it is engaging, and that it has value. And so that's kind of like the user experience. And a bit about the technology is, like I said, making sure that it works, making sure that you are setting the expectation appropriately. And you're not saying this bot can do absolutely everything. Like, I'm not saying by the end of this workshop, you will know how to build a bot. I'm saying you will know how to design a bot. You'll know the basics about it. I'm not saying I can do absolutely everything. I'm not saying I can teach you how to, write an AI model, and I can teach you how to train a bot. I'm only saying you can do these specific things. So you know that that's what you're going to learn, and that's what you're going to get out of it. So for our next question, we say, what do you want to know about the most? Do you want to know about the best practices, or do you want to know about the biggest mistakes that people often make when they are creating a bot? And Chelsea, I see your question here of how can chatbot design different than voice design. I'm just going to pop this into the stickies below and answer it at the end, if you don't mind. And I'll then show you guys how you can ask a question if you want to. So you
Just
could
a quick note, I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I think some of the little dots are getting hidden. So I'm taking the best practices thing and sending it to back, and then all these yellow stickies appeared that were hidden. Just so you know.
Okay. I don't know how to do that. Oh, I see. Send to back here. So I will make sure to do that before we decide, especially if we have a tie. But yeah, so also to show you guys right down here, if you want to ask a question, just grab one of these sticky notes, put your question, and then at the end, I'll make sure that we have some time to get to those. I think we're gonna have a tie again. But that's good. That means that you all want to learn about all of this, which I like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, these both are equal. Again, are people voting more than once? Maybe it is that you are. Yeah, see, I should know the shortcuts for these, but I don't. Okay, I believe that the biggest mistakes that people often make is emerging as the winner. But what you see here is that after we talk about the biggest mistakes people make, we're going to get into the best practices. So let me just go right here. So like I said, making a good bot is the easy part. Making a bad bot is also pretty easy. Like, there's also a lot of bad bots out there. And I think that chatbots have gotten a really bad name over the past couple of years. And it is because of the same reasons. They are dumb. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what you're saying. And you have a lot of times where you get into an experience where you are just getting the same things over and over and over. So they're either saying, I don't understand you, or they're saying, I can't do that. I'm sure that you all have experienced something like that. And so a lot of this is just coming down to the way that they were designed. And so it is a big mistake, like I said, to not lay out the expectations. So you want to make sure that you're telling the user what they can do and what they cannot do. And that you can say this bot is for this. And so you want to have a plan, especially too, if they try to do something that is outside the bounds of what you've created. So if you are trying to do something, like I said, if you're trying to ask a question that I don't have up here on this board, you want to give them a place to do that. So whether that is saying, you know, if you want to talk to a human, or you can say something like, you know, I can only talk about these things. If you want to talk about these things, you can go over here. So that is something that I call the catch-all, or like the fail state. And so that is when I'm understanding, like the bot is understanding that a user is wanting to do something that the bot does not know about. And that comes down to the type of bot that it is. So if it has a set of rules that it's following, it doesn't know a lot. If it is powered by natural language understanding, then it might understand a little bit more because it's trying to listen for things like that. But a lot of times people will just put a bot out into the world and they will act like it is smart, and they will act like it knows everything when in fact it knows very few things. And so making sure that you're communicating what you can do and what you cannot is definitely something that will help you to not make these mistakes. And it will help your customers to be more satisfied with the results that they're getting, because they expect that that's what they're going to get. And it's very clear how they can get from point A to point B, and point B being they've completed the experience. And oh, sorry, my phone is ringing off the hook. So, and I would say the second biggest mistake that I see people make is overdoing it on the personality and on the copy. So it's actually very fun to create a personality for a bot. This one doesn't necessarily have one because it's just like my own personality. But if you are creating this persona for your bot, if you have this entire character that you've developed, that's really fun, but the user doesn't really care about that much. What they care about is that it works. What they care about is getting the thing that they want to accomplish through it. And if you can do that through an engaging personality, if you can do that through something that's building a relationship with them, that's great. But it's not entirely necessary that you create this grand persona that is going to be communicating with this user and it's funny and it says all these jokes. They don't really care about that. At the end of the day, they just care about getting the thing that they want to get. And so that's definitely something that a lot of people make these types of mistakes. And I see that with a lot of like beginners of the first time people are creating bots. They just want to go all out and they want to make it this super engaging experience, but the experience itself is engaging, but the user doesn't get anything. And so at the end of that, how successful is it really? And so what you want to do is to just make sure that you are considering the sentiment of the users that are going to be interacting with you, and then also considering your brand. You know, if you have a legal bot, you don't want it to be super funny and making all these legal jokes. That's not something that is going to make the users trust you. It's something that is going to make them say, like, how can I trust you with my legal decisions when you are, you know, making a bunch of jokes about me getting in a car accident? That's not something that is appropriate for the person to be interacting with you. They want someone that is going to match the sentiment that they have. They want something that is trustworthy in that situation. And so actually over here, I have this little star. So this is a guide that I've created if you want to create a persona. So it's over at the left over here. This is a personality guide. So if you're thinking about creating a personality, this would go for any brand, and your organization might already have a personality, but this is something that you might want to create specifically for your bot. And so that's a place that you can go to get a personality guide. But like I said, you might already have one. Your brand might already have one, and that's something that can be adopted into a more engaging, more conversational type of thing. So next is going to be the best practices. So the best practices, and I will just talk about these quickly because I know we are running a little bit low on time, and I want to make sure that we can get to talking about how to actually design this. And that can be something I can go over quickly. But for the best practices, and it kind of falls into what I already was talking about. So you want to make sure that you are keeping it simple. You want to make sure that you are stating questions very plainly in a way that's going to minimize failure, which again is kind of where the UX comes into play. So you want to make sure that the user experience is easy. It feels effortless for the person to be having this conversation. They know exactly what they are supposed to be doing. They know exactly what you are saying. They can understand you. You're not using slang terms. There's a lot of, I would say, copy best practices that all are just coming down to make it simple and make it effective. And really, you can't go wrong with that. Don't overthink putting all these grand things into it. Just focus on keeping it very engaging. And then another thing that I will talk about that goes a little bit into the differences between the interfaces of all the different types of bots is that a few of the platforms allow you to follow up with people. And so that's something that you want to be utilizing. You want to be, if you are on a Facebook bot, or if you are on SMS, if you are on WhatsApp, and if you are on voice and you have permission to do this, you can actually send the user a proactive message. So once you've started a conversation with them, you have opened it up so that you can persistently be messaging them. So they're, instead of just being someone like on your website, a person comes to your website, they interact with your website chatbot, and then they X out. They're gone forever. You'll never talk to them again. You don't know who they are. You don't have a relationship with them. If you're interacting with them on these other platforms, or if on your website you have a Facebook Messenger plugin, and that's how you're interacting with them, then you can send them a message whenever you want. So you could say like, hey, you didn't finish filling out your quote. Are you still interested? And you could say that the next day, you could say that 3 days later, or if it's a segment of your audience who are fitting a specific new offering that you're about to launch, you could say, hey, you know, rates are at an all-time low. Would you like to see if you pre-qualify for this offer? That's something that you can do on a persistent basis, especially with SMS. That's the platform that I like the most because you are in that person's pocket. You are building this one-on-one relationship with them, and you're able to continue to have that conversation over the course of several days, weeks, or months. So that's something that you definitely want to utilize if you are on a platform that allows you to be doing that. Okay, so I think last but not least, I know what we're going to talk about, but I will let you guys vote one more time if you want to talk about how to design, or if you want to talk about the skills that you need if you would like to become a conversation designer. Oh, and I see you guys are all up here too. Oh, and Jessica asked a question that pertains to the best practices. So considerations for how to ensure you don't annoy users when you're proactively messaging them. So I would say to typically for when you're in a conversation, I would say to not send more than 3 messages to a person without them responding back. So you want to make sure that you're asking them a question. It's supposed to be a conversation, not like a one-way street. And that can kind of go for following up with people. So I know there's kind of different opinions about how often you would follow up with people. And it's a similar thing to like sending a push notification. You don't want to be sending a push notification every single hour. Someone's just going to turn it off. They're going to say like, stop messaging me or something like that. They're going to uninstall whatever you're doing. And so you want to kind of follow that same framework for messaging people. So I typically recommend like a 24 hours, 3 days, and then like 1 month sort of follow-up method. And I think it really depends on what you're messaging them about. So if it's something where they're like 90% through your experience and you just need to get them to the finish line, that might be something that is worth sending a few more messages versus if they just didn't, you know, subscribe for your updates, I wouldn't be messaging them forever. I would be maybe sending 1 message or sending something like a couple months down the line just to see if you can re-engage them. But definitely not sending like a ton of messages to them at once. Okay, so we are going to quickly get into how to design a chatbot. So we can go up here. And for this, I actually have created sort of like a fast track and a more in-depth track. And so I think for the sake of time, we'll be going into that. But I also want to just like kind of highlight, you know, how a bot could be created, because that's really what this entire thing is all about. And that's kind of what you're looking at is I could take this flow map and I could make it into a bot. I've already outlined exactly what I want to do, and I could write a script for that, and then that could eventually become a bot. And so now I think you all know why conversation designers are needed to create a chatbot. We talked about that already, so we can skip over that one. So the most important part to creating a chatbot is to define your purpose and define your goal. This is the number one thing that you need to be doing. And if you don't have a goal for your bot, it's almost as if you should not be creating one at all. You're kind of just creating a toy. Like I would say a bot without a goal is just a toy. And it's just something that you're doing because you want to have it. It's not necessarily something you're doing because it's going to serve a purpose for your business. It's going to serve a purpose for your users. It's something that you really want to make sure that you are thinking about, why are we doing this? So a few examples of goals that you could be creating, because this is like super important and you might not know how it specifically applies to your business. You could have someone completing a quote. You could be qualifying them as a lead. So if you are like a salesperson, you have a set of questions that you ask a person and then they're qualified or not qualified. You could be activating a subscription for someone. You could be delivering them a free piece of content, like a free download or an invite to something, or, you know, an exclusive piece of content that they're going to get by interacting with you. And you could be, if it's customer support, it could be you're resolving an issue. They are resolving an issue themselves through your automated experience. And so you really want to just define what is this action that people are going to get at the end of this experience. And then you need to tell them that at the beginning of the experience. So they need to understand what they're even doing here. Why are they here? If you think about airlines, they can do a few different things. You could rebook your flight. You could learn about new flights. You could, you know, get access to specific offers that are for you. You could get a personalized recommendation about where you should travel based on your budget. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it, and you can have a couple of different goals for the experience. It's just really important because when the user shows up at the door of your bot, you want them to know why they're here. It's kind of overwhelming for a user to feel like they can do absolutely anything. They like to have options, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's buttons, but it should mean that they at least know what they're doing. And so you want to make sure that you have a goal, and that's like the number one thing that you want to be doing. So from here, I am going to break down the how to design in a few phases. So I have 4 phases here. And like I said, I'm not going to go super down the path here of the specific ways to do it, but I want to make sure that you have a high level overview of how this process works. So the first phase is strategy. So it's right here. So for this, like I said, you're going to be defining your goal. That's the number one thing. What you want to walk away from your strategy is that you have your goal and what the spot's going to be doing. And so from there, you're going to outline the steps. And so that's a lot of what you actually see here in Miro, and like what you can use Miro for is to create your outline. So what I did is I defined, you know, who this is for. This is for this group of people here who are new and existing Miro users who want to learn about conversation design. That's my audience. And so from there, I'm going to outline all the steps of what you can do and what you can learn in this experience. And after I do that, I'm going to create a map. So that's exactly what you're seeing on the screen. This is called a flow map. So once you have your outline, you're going to map out how that journey goes. So it could be considered a user journey, but I just call it a flow map because that's kind of what this is. And this is one of the things that people use Miro for the most in conversation design, is to create maps just like this one. You might have it be that you are filling these out a little bit more, having the full message, or you might just be showing how the different paths go. So I found it very easy to color code them. So each of my flows is a different color. And that's just a very easy way to be navigating it. And so the second phase that you're going to go through is the design phase. So that, you know, of course, makes the most sense. So from here, that's where I said the flow map, this is what you can use Miro for. So you have your flow map, and now you're going to get into writing. So you're going to write all of the flows. So if I were making a bot for this flow map, I would sit down and write all of the copy for how to design a chatbot. I would write down all the things that I just said, and I would show, okay, here's where I'm going to jump over to goal setting, and then I would write all the copy for that. So it's really just a way to make this flow map into more of a conversation. So this is where, you know, all of the key flows that you're having, so my key flows being definitions, why businesses should use bots, the basics of conversation design. Those are my flows. And then I'm going to write everything below those. And then I'm going to have my secondary flows of, if I said, let's talk about the types of bots. These would have two secondary flows, one being rule-based bots, one being AI and NLP power bots, and then everything that would go underneath that. So if you want to create a script, or if you want to see how I create a script, and again, I have another star here, and I'll just open this up because this looks very different than a flow map. So this is how I actually write the copy for my scripts. And being that the people here are interested in conversation design, I feel you should see like the guts of it all. So if I'm going to be writing for a chatbot, this is what I do. I have a spreadsheet, and this is the link to this is in our Miro sheet right here in the star. And I would just go through each flow and I would write them all out. So I would write, here's the definitions of chatbots, and here's what the user picks, and here's what I pick. So this is my second step. After I make my map, I go through and I write out all the dialogue. This is a really good way too, if you're working with a developer, you'll be able to tell them what the bot's going to be doing. So I'm using this to direct saying, I'm going to be linking this to a secondary flow here. I'm going to be jumping to human handoff here. This row is going to skip this line right here, and instead it's going to go to this line. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of start to direct people to develop this bot for you. And that's kind of what this is for. The flow map is sort of your guide of how you are going to be creating this for someone. So after you go to your script, then you're going to make a prototype. And there's a lot of tools out there that I link to over here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So there's these tools that you can use that are no coding tools if you want to build a prototype for your bot, or if you want to just build a bot yourself, you want to try it out. These are a few of my favorite tools. So one being BotMock, which is just a way to take a flow map and press play, and then you can watch the experience. VoiceFlow is one that you can use to build voice bots, and you can actually build them and deploy them. And ChatFuel is a way that you can build messenger chatbots. So this is a really good way to see how this spreadsheet would actually play out in a conversation. So right here, it looks, oh, I have pictures, I have text, but when I actually see this and experience it as a user, I might see that this text is way too long and I need to come back and edit it. And so a prototype is a really good way to be doing that. And there's a lot of different ways that you can prototype. So here's just kind of the tools that I recommend that are linked right there. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, with the prototype, it's going to lead us to our next phase, which is testing. So we want to make sure that we are testing the experience as we're going on. So even in the design, you want to make sure that you're creating your prototype, you're testing it, you're seeing, does this work? Is this understandable? Can the user actually use this? You could do something that's called Wizard of Oz testing, which is sort of what we're doing right now, where I'm acting as the bot instead of a computer and you're acting as the user. So you can just like read it out loud. You can have a person behind the experience typing to you, but it's actually not a bot. So that's another way to do it. A way that I like to do it is just like create, iterative like demos and just be able to actually use the thing, break it as many times as I want, use it as many times as I want, and send it to other people to use. And then I'm going to put it out into the world, typically to a very small group of people, similar to if you were releasing a website. You might allow some traffic in, and then you're going to open it up as you see how people are using it, because a lot of things are going to get exposed that you didn't even think about. There's going to be a lot of topics that you wish you had included, or there's going to be questions or options that people want to do that you did not foresee when you were in your design phase, because it's very easy for us to know what the user should do, but the user knows what the user wants to do. And we don't necessarily know that. So we definitely need to be just continuing to test and improve it forever, which is why I said in this phase 4 is launch. That's going to be something you're probably going to be doing forever. You're not going to just launch this and then never think about it again. You're going to continue to improve it over time. You're going to continue to make it smarter and have more capabilities and learn more things. And you're going to continue to make it the best experience that it can be for the user. And hopefully they're going to want to use it a lot more, and you can build out the capabilities, and you can get more budget, and you can make it a lot bigger, and you can make it a lot more important as a part of your business, because you will see the results in it. So I think right now we have 10 minutes left. So let's jump over here to talk to a human. And that, for the case of this bot, is just our question and answer section. So if you have a question from this, whether it is, kind of what do I do next, you can all have access to this board. So you could go through and click on all the links that I put here if you want to, go to more events, if you want to join online communities, if you want to watch videos. There's a lot of links up there. So after this, feel free to go click through those. But I just want to make sure that I have time to answer your questions. And let me pop over to Zoom as well to see if there's any questions over there. Yeah, so Jessica asked if I write my scripts in Miro. I do not write my scripts in Miro. I just do the flow mapping in Miro because it's very easy to connect everything. It's also very collaborative. So people are able to leave comments. They can say, this doesn't make sense. I can start to leave notes and say, hey, over here, we want to build this flow out this way, or we want to do an API call right here. That's something that I might leave little comments in, but I like to write it in a spreadsheet just because it's the easiest, it's the plainest way to find it. That has been for 5 years. That's been the best way that I've found to create it. And there has not been a tool that I have been able to use to write it besides this script. So that's why I created the template, because I was I don't know what the best way is to do it, but this is the best way that I found. Okay, so I'm not sure who these questions are from, so I will just read them. So, how to get experience as a conversation designer if it's not an opportunity available at work? I'm an interaction designer, but we don't currently build bots with our clients. However, conversation design sounds interesting, and I would love to get exposure in doing it. How did I get into it from working in social media? So, to answer the question about how I got into it, so I was working as a social media consultant. I had lost my job. I got laid off. And so I started a business doing social media. And that's kind of what I had been doing for 10 years before that. And one of my clients was like, hey, we heard about this thing called messenger chatbots. Let's figure out how to make one. And so that was how I learned. And that's kind of how I tell other people to learn, which leads me into how you can get the experience. So the best way to get the experience is to just throw it out there, just try to do it. And I find that creating something for yourself that you're very interested in, if you're I want to build a bot to be my workout partner, that's something that you are passionate about. And so it will be something that is helpful for you. Or a lot of people create bots for their portfolios or for their resumes. And they say, instead of a website, go here, interact with me in my chatbot, and I'll tell you more about myself. And creating these sorts of experiences using the tools that I shared that you don't have to know how to code to do is just a really good way to understand what the fundamentals of it are. You can start figuring out how you might approach it, and you can start just experimenting with it. And I find that doing is really the best way to learn. And a lot of other people will share that too. And of course, there are online courses that you can take that will definitely give you a good overview of the basics. But in terms of actually experiencing what it's like to design a conversation, the best way to do it is to just do it. And so I always tell people to just kind of try making a bot. There's a lot of free resources that you can see. I've done a lot of webinars and workshops like this one on YouTube, or there's books, or there's podcasts, and you can really understand what are the best practices. But the best way that you're going to figure it out is to just do it. And if you don't have an idea, you could say, let me just try making one for my friend's small business, or this business that I made up. And just getting creative about the way that you're approaching it is really a good way to get exposed to doing it. Okay. How is chatbot design different than conversation design for voice? Is there a difference? There is a difference. So the main difference between chat and voice is that in chat, there can be options. So in voice, you have a lot of kind of like drawbacks as far as it's just like a microphone. And so a user can say anything. You can ask a user to say a certain thing, but they could really say anything back. And the ways that people use voice is very different. So as I keep mentioning, like it needs to have this purpose. You can't really deliver something over voice. Like you can have this immersive interactive experience. A person could be, interacting with like a daily subscription that they use if they're trying to use a meditation voice bot. There's a lot of like habits that you can build, but it's actually very difficult for a person to just do that on their own. Like all of the responsibility is sort of on the user to seek that out, versus you can't like advertise a voice bot. Like you would advertise a messenger bot and say, if you want to get pre-qualified for a mortgage, message us, and they could just do that. You can't really say like, if you want to get pre-qualified for a mortgage, say Quicken Mortgage to your Alexa. Like that's not really an experience that feels natural to people. And so there's a lot of drawbacks as far as the actually acquisition of the users of it. But I think that the main thing of designing for chat versus voice is that you have to like design what the user is going to be doing in chat. So you're almost designing the user's interactions and the bot's interactions, versus voice is a lot more open. And there's also a lot more room for error as far as if someone has an accent, if people are using different slang words, like there's a lot of I guess like inclusivity, and the localization aspect of voice is very, very different than chat. Is just like you read it and there it is. I hope that answers your question. Are there opportunities to participate in collaborative projects in actual conversation design? So I think what you mean by this is like, are people looking for conversation designers to collaborate with on projects? I'm not sure about this. I'm sure that if you find someone and you approach them, people might be interested in that. There's a lot of online communities where people are looking for feedback on their projects, or where they might be looking for contributors. Especially there's a few like voice hackathon type of things where people will get together and they'll have like a competition to design the best skill, and people will go into teams and they will like create these skills in this weekend and things like that. There's a lot of those out there. I'm not sure of like when they are or where they are, but I'm sure that through searching you can find different voice competitions, and you could meet people through like whatever groups those are about, and you can participate in these sort of like collaborative projects with people who are experienced and with people who are new. And then you could even like win an award, and then you have a lot of experience designing voice. And I think it's more popular in the voice space than in the chat space. But like I said, the ways that you're designing and sort of the fundamentals of it are the same for both. Okay. If you work in-house and your company has only one bot and you finish designing it, what happens next? Do you keep iterating on it? I'm having trouble understanding how work continues as a full-time conversation designer, or a conversation designer is usually working at an agency. That depends. So there's conversation designers working. So like I work for a product company. So my company has customers who use our product, and they are using our platform to have conversations with their customers. So they are signing up, and I am maintaining these playbooks that we have that a person can text this bot and we can follow up with them, or we can qualify them for something. So that is like our product that they're just like white labeling it, using it as their brand. So that's one option. Another option is to work at an agency where you're working with multiple clients. Like Live Person's a really big one, where they have like hundreds of clients that are all using bots, and the conversation designers there are very busy. And then the third option is to be working in-house full-time. So for example, USAA is a business that has a bot, and they have a whole team of people that all work on that. And so the ongoing thing is that you're looking at the data, and then you're making decisions based on that. So it's similar to like Why would you have a web team, or why would you have a UX team when your website's already live or your app's already live? There's a lot of things that can happen over time, and there's a lot of things that you can learn through having this. And so you could learn that people are always like getting tripped up at this one question and we need to edit that. Or a lot of people are trying to do this one thing that we have not built into our experience. So now we're going to build it into our experience. And the more users you have, the more that you learn, and you're always going to be having more users. So it's kind of this continuous cycle of iterating on what you're doing, and then also improving, expanding, making it smarter. There's, I think a lot of conversation designers will look for new and emerging like trends within your experience to build more experiences. You need to maintain your NLP models. You need to decide that you're going to be responding to people. And so like if you're using an NLP model, and now you're going to start understanding a lot of different things, you still need to know what the bot's going to say back. So you can't just have a computer be writing those responses. You need a conversation designer to write those responses. And so you need a person to say, hey, now we're going to start talking about personal loans when before we were only talking about business loans. So now I need to go write what we're going to say when a person says that. So that's kind of like the ongoing aspect of the job. And I know a couple people have to run. I'll get to these last few questions, and then I'll let you guys go for the day. I hope that you had fun at the session too. I know that we did not get to what you liked, but I hope that you guys had fun. Okay, any exemplary bots I would point to as examples of great design? Any chance I have a government example? I don't have a government example, unfortunately. I know that the Canadian Revenue Agency has a chatbot. That's Jessica's project that she's working on. I think that there are a lot of great bots in like the banking industry. I know, like I mentioned, USA is like in finance. I think that Capital One has a bot. Bank of America has one as well. Charles Schwab has one. There's also a lot of great bots in the insurance space. One that I personally worked on is called Haven Life Insurance, and you can find them on Facebook. And that's a way that you can qualify for life insurance with a chatbot. So that's a very like engaging bot. And then there's also a lot of fun ones. So, well, I guess I don't know that it is fun, but Wobot is kind of like a therapy type of bot. And there's been like different weather bots and things like that. Sephora, you can book services through their bot. You can find stores around you. So that's really nice to have. Ulta, I believe through their website, you can interact with the bot and get like personalized recommendations for products. So those are all the types of experiences that I sort of like to have. You can also Google, there's different kind of directories of bots and like lists of things that you can see different ones, and you can probably filter by industry. So you could probably find a government bot if you wanted to have one. Let's see. What's the future of conversation design applied to virtual assistants? So conversation design like is already applied to virtual assistants. So I think that you're meaning kind of like, what's the future of virtual assistants? And I think that we're just going to continue to see more of them. I think we're going to see more of this technology, and I think that we're going to see it become a lot smarter. I think that a lot of the early bots weren't utilizing conversation design, and they were sort of just creating experiences, putting them out, and maybe they were written by a developer, they were written by the head of comms, and they just didn't really have that much conversation to it. They weren't really that engaging, and they kind of flopped. They didn't really work that well. And I think a lot of that is because they weren't utilizing conversation design. They weren't thinking about what is this interaction going to be like. And so now I think that even as we're seeing like new devices emerge. So we're seeing devices that actually have conversational interfaces on them, like vacuums and like, you know, your pool heater or something like that. There's a lot of different types of interfaces that aren't just what you think of like web, chat, and voice device. Like there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways that you can interact with people. And I think that people are leaning a lot into creating like their own branded situations, like their own branded virtual assistants, their own voice, their custom voice and their custom assistant. I think that's something that we're seeing in cars. That's something that we're going to continue to see as time goes on. And so that's why it's like a very exciting time to work in this field. It's definitely something that I recommend people get into, whether that is professionally or just advocating for using bots within your business. All right, last question. how would you approach a bot redesign if an existing bot is just scraping website content? When writing a script, would you ever recommend scraping web content to translate it through a conversational approach? So I would not personally recommend just scraping web content and translating it into a bot, because you already have a website. So if you already have a website, why are you putting that same website into a bot? It's kind of like when mobile apps first came out, people just took their website and wrapped it in a mobile app and then put it in the app store. And it's like, why did you do that? Why would someone download your app to see the same thing that they could see in their mobile browser or on your website? They don't need to go to download your app to then just do the same thing. And it kind of is the same way for bots. Like, I understand the purpose is it might be hard to interact with your website, but that's a different problem. Like, your website is a problem on its own, and a bot's not going to fix that. A bot is meant to be a bot, and a website is meant to be a website. And so that's sort of like how I feel about it. I think there could be certain elements of your site that you could point people to. And so if there's several like very, very frequently asked things, maybe there's 5 things that people ask all the time, you could build some of that content into your bot, and you could say, if you want to know more about that, go over here. But really, you're just creating kind of like a mini search window within your own website. And that's not really helping the user, because they're still having to do the same searches that they're doing on the bigger part of your website. And then as far as like approaching a redesign of that type of experience, what I would maybe first do, if you have not established like what the goal of this is, and if you and your team are unsure like what you have in front of you, just try to like reverse engineer it almost. So take your final experience of what your bot is, try to remake and say, what was the goal of this? Or what do we want the goal of this to be? And say, here's the thing that, you know, we did, and here's where it fits. And here's the things that we didn't think about. We didn't think about what the main flows were. We didn't think about what to do if people didn't know what they were doing. We didn't think about what the goals were. And now you want to apply them. And so then you could just think of, we're kind of going to start from scratch, but we want to at least try to maintain what we already have. And then you can actually remake an outline of your script. You can remake a script document of your bot, and then you can kind of start to approach it again. So you can just like chip away at it and say, here's all of our dialogue. Now we can see it arranged differently. We can see like where the holes are, and you can kind of fill in all of the gaps based on what you already have. So I hope that answers your question, Jessica. I know a little bit of context of what Jessica's situation is, so I feel that I am giving her more specific advice, but if you have more questions about these types of things, if you have an existing bot, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I can give you similar advice about how to approach your existing project. Or if you want to just say hi, if you liked this workshop, feel free to, my LinkedIn link is right up here. So feel free to add me. We can continue the conversation, and I'm happy to send you more resources. I will be posting this recording on my LinkedIn and on my website. I believe that the Miro team will also be posting the recording, and perhaps in the future we'll be hosting another one of these events, and we will be going down a few different paths that we didn't get to cover in this one. All right, that's all I have for today, guys. Any upcoming events I'm holding, yes, I will post them all on LinkedIn. On April 8th, I am hosting a career Q&A. So if you're interested in getting a job in conversation design, that's definitely one to attend. I am also hosting a Designing for WhatsApp 101 on mid-April sometime, I think April 21st. And the link for that is right here. That is going to be, if you have any interest in WhatsApp, we'll be going about best practices for WhatsApp, how to design a WhatsApp bot. And then at the end of April, the event link is not out for this yet, but I will be hosting a Designing for Voice 101. And I will be doing a live workshop where I designed my very first voice bot. I never have designed for voice before. So I will be going through that with the platform VoiceFlow. So if you have interest in learning about designing for voice, that's definitely not one to miss. So just keep an eye on either my LinkedIn or my website to learn about that. Cool. Well, thanks all of you. I'm not sure who's still here, but Great to see you today. Great to see you, Marissa.
Thanks. Great to see you too. This is very, very informative and fun. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Hillary. This was so fun.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks, you guys, for coming.